Today, we're going to talk about Avata 1 versus Avata 2. Let's do this. Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. If this is the first time to my channel, please don't forget, like, subscribe, hit the bell if you want to be notified about future videos of mine. This video is not sponsored in any way by DJI. I bought both of these suckers on my own, with my own money. Let's dive into it. So let's actually talk about, is it worth the upgrade to the Avata 2 if you're the owner of the Avata 1? To answer that question, we have to look at certain specific points first before we can make that decision. First off, I would say design. Design-wise, how robust the Avata 1 is, she's way more robust than the Avata 2 in my eyes. I crashed this thing how many times? I have plenty battle scars to show for all over. I like the design better because the parts are more interchangeable and they are more robust in the manufacturing part on the plastic or the material that they were using. Plus the camera itself inside, it seems to have a better protection on the inside based on that it's in here, in between these two big studs. While the Avata 2, on the other hand, has the camera pretty close to it. So if you nail something, you run danger to actually hit the camera housing right away too, even though you have these two pieces right here, while versus the Avata 1, you don't have that. Plus this body part and the way they made the frame structure and the design of the bottom part over here with these air ducts, it is way more solid. It feels way more solid, way more robust like this. I'm trying to push this. I can barely move this. While on the Avata 2, the design itself probably contributed to its flight characteristics and the balancing part, but a really flimsy material. I can push this like easily around. So if you crash this, you're gonna break it really fast, especially on higher speeds, and this thing can go super fast. In order to change that, you have to change the entire body. This body flows together with these air ducts. While on this one, the air ducts and the body are separated. You have separate arms, you have separate air ducts, you have the sensor sitting in the bottom. It's all separation, where I think the design for stability or for like how robust this thing is, the Avata 1 was better over the Avata 2. Now, when it comes to flight characteristics, the Avata 1, on the other hand, was not balanced well. The battery was more set towards the back, and the balance-wise, even with the propellers, the way it was designed, it tended to do that whole yaw tumble really fast. She was not as agile as I would say as the Avata 2 is flight characteristic wise, and that was one of the biggest flaws. She could just drop out of the air, or she can still drop out of the air if you fly this with a controller. If you use, on the other hand, this motion controller stick, then you're safe. That's what this drone was initially released with, and DJI made a point out of it to release it just with that motion stick. Not plenty people are friends of it. I'm a huge fan of it, and I really like it. It makes flying super easy for either of these versions, including the DJI FPV drone, the bigger one, the big monster that is like incredibly fast and big and intimidating. Even that makes it easy to fly it with this. Flight characteristic wise for the Avata 2, this thing is a hammer. It is super fast, it is super stable. I can't complain about this. The balancing is perfect. The way she flies is perfect. She does not have that yaw tumble, even with the controller, but we don't do that here in this video this time. I like the design of the battery where it has these two clips where you have to literally push them in and you get that satisfying click. You have that clicking sound in it, and I really enjoy that. It's way better than design-wise for the Avata 1, where, for an example, if you crashed once in a while, you had the tendency that this battery would just pop out, and then had people inventing stuff where you could put straps around it or battery holders and stuff so that the battery wouldn't pop out, so you actually could try and find your drone if it's crashed somewhere out of the line of sight. So design-wise, the Avata takes it for being more robust and more tanky, while the Avata 2 takes it more for the flight characteristics, the way it was made, and she's way quieter. These Avata 2 flies way quieter than the Avata 1. The Avata 1 is more like a high-pitched sound, while this one has that three-blade propeller, while this one has a 5-blade propeller, and it cuts the air like in high-pitched noise. While this one is more like a medium sound, more in between like a Air 3 and a Mavic 2 Pro, which is technically seen more better for people who don't really necessarily want to draw that much attention. Flight-wise, if you stick with the motion controllers, then you have no problem with either one of these drones to fly through tight gaps, to fly around corners, to go wherever you need it to go. If you're the owner of the Avata 1, first of all, in my eyes, you have the better goggles. Even though transmission-wise, you have the 04 on the Avata 2, I think the design on the Avata 1 goggles was better. And I'll tell you why. So Avata 1 goggles, first of all, it comes with this trippy thing in the inside, so to protect your lenses from sunlight. So when you took it out, you had to literally take it like this, and then you were able to take it off and put it back on. This was great that they actually implemented that with this goggles. Besides that, I actually like this firm frame of these that headgear that came it with, because the new version has just the top piece of your head touching your head. This part right here touches your head, and then you get these flimsy things sitting on your face. I sweat a lot, as you guys can see right here. I'm sweating a lot right now in the studio. I'm sweating here, just sitting here, but it's because it's super hot right now too. It's like 90 degrees. I sweat a lot into these, and I have to put on the defog modus on this. I barely, even when I was sweating, fogged up these goggles. For some odd reason, I barely did. And it's kind of weird why it does that. Another point that I want to point out on this is that this is the battery of the Avata 1. This is the battery of the Avata 2. Now, is it really cool that they put it in there? It takes away the step of actually having to worry about where you put that cumbersome battery and stuff. You can plug the goggles straight in, charge it up. I don't like it because there's this wire stuff running through here, and over a long term of usage, as you can see, these straps move and kinking the wires and turning them in like this and putting them into the bag. I believe if you have to change out this battery pack, or even if the battery pack goes bad, you'll have to purchase a new set of goggles, which I find it rubbish because you can't really work on this unless you're technically inclined. Meaning that if you would have to change that out, you'd drop easily $300 just for the goggles, while you stay with $75 just for this battery pack and probably a wire to just plug it in. And I actually like it better that way, where you have the option to where you want to put the battery, because plenty of people told me before, they don't like to have the battery around their head or on their head. Now it's automatically on your head with that new goggle set. And I don't know, I don't really care for this type of design. Plus, it's always just on your forehead. The good thing about the goggles 3 is though that you can double click on this. While the double click on this would just open up the menu. You double click on this and you have these 2 tiny cameras right here. So you actually can see what you're looking at, which is kind of like, it's a little bit more to the side. So if you turn this way, you have turn a little bit more on one side, but you can still see, which is actually pretty good. That's given that you don't have a visual observer with you and you have to see who's coming or approaching you. Double click, double tap, and you can actually see what's going on. You don't have to take the goggles off, which as usually is bright sunlight and stuff, because in your goggles it's pretty dark. So your eyes dilate to see stuff. So there are pros and cons on it. I prefer the design of the DJI Avata 1 goggles, while other people probably like the DJI Avata 2. But yeah, I think that's personal preference. Now to get to the motion controller. The motion controller on the Avata 1 was a more solid one. If you have big hands like me, it felt really good, and it feels good to having this thing in your hand and do the motion controller. They also brought a second version out, which already included this little tap right here. So you were able to actually push this back and to fly the drone backwards. So you actually could do that with that Avata 1 already. With having to purchase an extra controller, which I didn't. I just kept going forward because I figured it's a FPV, so you just fly forward, right? Anyhow, the new controller is slightly smaller, like way smaller. Like, I don't know, like you can see the difference right here. It's like this one's sticking out at the bottom, while this one is not. While this one felt more wider, while this one is like more tiny, but they're both great to handle. It's just sad that they changed the buttons around a little bit just to have different functions, which in my eyes, the functions pretty much like switching between normal and sport mode and stopping, going, locking, landing, taking off, descending, whatever. You also have the capability of pointing out with this in your goggles. It's like a stick, and wherever you point it, it's like a lightsaber. And you're pointing at it and you can actually press the button to choose that option, which is pretty cool, but that's the software thing. Design-wise, this one feels way more solid and robust, but it does not have the initial flyback trigger right over here, while this one does have the flyback triggers. Now, when it comes to camera-wise, the Avata 2 is also better than the Avata 1. And that is simply given because the Avata 2 has a bigger sensor and you are able to actually film in D-Log 10-bit colors to have multiple LUTs applying application grading over another grade, another grade, another grade, any type of grade that you actually want to put in there. You're going to be able to play around with those colors. Plus, if you tune down the sharpness a little bit within the stuff, you don't have that harshness. You get some really, really cinematic looking footage that I believe the camera is way better. It doesn't cross the blacks as much. And plus you have the 10-bit color, you have the D-Log, you can play around with the colors. And if you pick up some freewheel filters that make a huge difference to keep your shutter speed twice over your frame rate. So that means if you film in 4K 60, you want to film in 1/120 for your shutter speed to have that motion blur, that natural motion blur that the human eye conceives. Now, if you don't have those ND filters on there, then you're going to end up actually cranking up your shutter speed to make up for that extra lighting that is coming in. You're putting down on the aperture, and it's kind of, I don't know, it's like with the Avata 1, it was kind of like a hit or miss. So on the Avata 2, it's really, really good, especially when you have ND filters that are currently out there. You can find the link in the description of this video for all the products that I mentioned in here. I bought all of those except for the freewheel filters that were actually sent to me by Freewheel to actually take a look at it and give them my opinion about it. And in my eyes, those freewheel filters make a huge difference. So you definitely want to pick up some. Next of all, we have the batteries. So now the battery life on this one was appraised as being at 18 minutes. Now we all know that the 18 minutes was a freaking lie because when we fly it in heavy winds, we fly it through all kinds of different things, while their 18 minutes is pretty much just hovering in an air-controlled room where it just sits there, so it can actually hover for 18 minutes before it wants to land. We don't do that. So you got probably out of this one around 12 to 13 minutes. If you would really push it, maybe 14 to 15 minutes. But then you would run low on that battery already and you would lose a tremendous amount of confidence to fly this. So you have actually more of like a 12 to 13 minute window to fly this, which in FPV terms is super long because you get super stressed out, especially when you fly in 3 packs. Now, with the batteries given, these batteries are actually bigger and have a higher milliampere than the Avata 2s. But those guys come in this neat case right over here where you can put all 3 batteries inside, hook them up to your 65-watt charger, plug them in, and poof, the thing starts up and it just loads it all up. The cool part is that if you take this with you, and let's say it's a rainy day and you can't fly, you can use this as a power bank. So you actually plug stuff in here, right over here, get one USB-C, plug it in, charge your phone. Plug it in, charge your Avata 1 batteries for all I care. You know what I mean? You can use this as a power bank, which is really, really good. The design-wise, I like it because it has these clips on the side where it literally clicks into place. And that's, DJI is really good about that stuff. When they make their products, they really think about how to utilize or make the max out of everything. Plus, this came with a bag. So the Avata 2 Fly More Combo does provide you with a bag that you can use to store your drone, your goggles, your batteries, your battery mold right over here, and your controller. You can store everything, including you can throw in some freewheel ND filters. While on the other hand, the Avata 1, when you bought this sucker, you just got the Avata 1, you got the motion controller, you got the goggles, and you got one separate battery. And then of course you got this battery strip where these batteries click into. So you could pretty much like just put the strip. And I was given back then from Skyread one of those hard cases that was really, really good to store all that stuff in, including the controller, the infamous controller 2, which is now available for the Avata 2 also as the controller 3. One of the biggest things in my eyes that DJI really, really screwed up on in the DJI Avata 1 was that annoying SD card port. It's like literally in the middle of these propellers, like right here. You have to like kind of like wiggle it out. I mean, it's manageable. You get to do it somehow. And I did it, but it's like in between here. And you had to kind of like finger it in there and push with your fingernail, the card would fall out and you would just pick it up. How many times did I drop that card on the ground, man? Now, with the Avata 2, there is, dun dun dun, an accessible port right in the bottom of this thing. Something that they could have done with the Avata 1 too, but they didn't. So they did it with the Avata 2. Also, there's a USB-C in the bottom over there to charge the battery within the drone in case you fuck with your battery hub. Another part that the Avata 2 and the Avata 1 both share is that even though you have ND filters on top of your drone in the front, your covers still fit with the ND filter on top. See that? And it doesn't even touch it. So you have your camera with ND filter on top already. And the same thing goes for the Avata 1. You have this thing, but I thought that the Avata 1 had a little bit better way of putting the cover on rather than the Avata 2, but that's just the gimbal cover. But the gimbal cover fits together with an ND filter on top for either one of these drones, which is a great plus. That way you don't have to change out all the time your ND filters. If you are in the same type of environment, condition, whatever, you know it's sunny, you're gonna stay with ND8, ND16, whatever, and you're gonna fly around with it, which is really, really great. Now that's pretty much it for the comparison. I tried to keep it as short as I could and give you as much info as I could. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget, like, subscribe, hit the bell. All the products and all the music and everything you hear within this video and all that stuff is all in the description of this video. Until then, please don't forget, be a nice human, make somebody else smile, and definitely pay it forward, guys. All right, take it easy. Love you all. Aloha.